Hey, 42 here. The atom bomb, hydrogen bomb, nuclear bomb, whatever you want to call it. It is the single most destructive thing humanity has ever created. One nuclear device could flatten a city the size of London. And the United States of America has lost 8 of them. Permanently misplaced, these estranged nuclear warheads are called broken arrows by the Department of Defense. The first was lost on February the 13th, 1950. A B-36 bomber was flying from Alaska to Texas. It lost power and began to freefall rapidly. To prevent the bomb from detonating when the plane crashed, the pilot dropped the payload, a Fat Man nuclear bomb, into the Pacific Ocean. Submarine search teams were dispatched to find it, but it was never located, and to this day, one of the world's most powerful nuclear bombs remains undetonated somewhere at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. Another 2 bombs with a combined yield of 3.4 megatons went missing in 1956, when a B-47 left from Florida. Whilst travelling over the Mediterranean Sea through thick fog, it went missing. It was never heard from again. The nuclear weapons were never found. Another went missing in a swamp. Another bomb rolled off a US Navy vessel just off the coast of Japan, which Japan weren't too pleased about, to say the least. And another 2 were lost at sea when a US submarine mysteriously sank along with all 99 crew members. But whilst America has been busy losing nuclear warheads, Russia were hard at work building them. At the height of the Cold War in 1985, the Soviet Union had a terrifying 39,197 nuclear weapons, many more than the count of America's peak stockpile of 31,139. It has often been said that nuclear war is madness. And mad it is. Mad as in mutually assured destruction. The only thing that has so far prevented the end of the world. A doctrine of war that means if one side uses their full nuclear arsenal on the other side, then the other side will automatically use their nuclear arsenal upon the attacker in response, therefore wiping out both countries, and probably the rest of the world. It is based on the Nash equilibrium, which dictates that when both opponents possess the same strategy, neither side has anything to gain by using their strategy, and therefore the best course of action is to do nothing. And so the world today is frozen in a constant state of being on the brink of nearly blowing each other up. But how did it come to this? Fleeing persecution from the Nazi regime, many Jewish scientists fled to the West during the early days of the war, including highly influential physicists such as Albert Einstein, Hans Bethe, Edward Teller, and John von Neumann. Most of them joined the Manhattan Project, a brand new top-secret program between United States, United Kingdom, and Canada, with one primary goal: to invent the atomic bomb. The enormous project employed 130,000 people and cost the US the modern-day equivalent of $25 billion. Just 3 years after the project was established, the US detonated the world's first ever nuclear weapon in the New Mexico desert. It was codenamed Trinity. And from then on, they didn't waste any time, and just 3 weeks later, they detonated a uranium bomb over Hiroshima, killing over 140,000 people. In the bloody aftermath of the war, there was a twilight struggle between the communist Soviet Union and capitalist America to gain control of and shape how the post-World War would look. Russia had also gone nuclear and the arms race had begun, an arms race that would last 44 years. This was the Cold War. It was the ultimate contest of might, and each side went to extraordinary lengths just to prove they were the most endowed country. The USA seriously considered a plan to airdrop enormous condoms, labelled medium, into the USSR to demoralise the Soviets, and give the impression that the Americans had a greater manhood. The US also developed a top-secret plan to detonate a nuclear bomb on the moon. as a display of military prowess, but it was a tad too expensive and complicated. So when those plans didn't come to fruition, they created Project Acoustic Kitty. The CIA implanted microphones attached to a radio transmitter inside cats. The plan was to use cats to spy on the Kremlin, because nobody is going to suspect a cat with a wire sticking out of it. But during the very first test, the cat was accidentally run over by a car, so that threw a spanner of doubt into the general reliability of spy cats, and the Acoustic Kitty program was scrapped. But tensions grew until it all came to a climax during the most intense and uncertain 13 days of the Cold War: the Cuban Missile Crisis. October the 16th, 1962. Russia gets a bee in its bonnet over ballistic missiles that America had deployed in Italy and Turkey, conveniently in easy reach and pointed right at the USSR. Russia responded by placing a bunch of their nuclear weapons in Cuba, in frightfully close proximity to the US, giving Russia the opportunity to destroy any number of American cities with ease. During these nail-biting 13 days, the world was closer to complete nuclear annihilation than it has ever been. Eventually, an agreement was reached between John F. Kennedy and Khrushchev that both parties would dismantle and remove their respective weapons from Italy, Turkey, and Cuba. But what few people know is that during the Cuban Missile Crisis, we came just a hair's breadth from total nuclear annihilation because of 3 men in a submarine. During the crisis, Kennedy put a blockade on all sea traffic to Cuba to prevent Russia from delivering even more nuclear weapons to the small island nation. But a Soviet submarine is hiding deep in the Caribbean Sea around Cuba. US Navy vessels pick it up on their radars and start dropping depth charges to the left and the right of the submarine to try and deter it back to Russia. The sub is violently shaking, the onboard temperature rapidly rising. A decision had to be made quickly. The sub hadn't made contact with Russia for several days. They were too deep for their communications to reach the surface. They had no idea what was going on above the water. Completely in the dark, the 3 Soviet submarine commanders on board the vessel came to the conclusion that full-scale nuclear war had erupted above the surface. They thought that World War III was underway, hence the aggression they were receiving. Little did the Americans know that this submarine was equipped with an enormous nuclear torpedo, capable of wiping out a nearby fleet of US destroyers or an entire city if they chose. One of the submarine captains proclaimed, "We're gonna blast them now." They readied the nuclear torpedo, and their hand was hovering above the red button, just millimeters away. If they had fired the nuclear weapon, it would have led to a chain of events that would have actually caused full-scale nuclear war and the end of the world. But they didn't fire the nuclear torpedo because of the calm temperament of one man, Vasily Alexandrovich Arkhipov. Soviet submarines were only allowed to fire their nuclear weapons if all 3 onboard commanders agreed to do so, unanimously. The other 2 commanders had agreed to fire and were pushing Vasily to acquiesce, but he would not. He believed this was not an attack, but just a not so subtle way of America telling them to get away from Cuba. He remained calm and talked down the other 2 commanders, saving the world. These freak instances aren't as rare as you might hope. In total, there have been 13 events where nuclear weapons have very nearly been launched due to accidents or false alarms. But why is nuclear war mad? Why does mutually assured destruction have to be the only way? Is it not possible that America could use their full nuclear force on Russia's nuclear facilities in a preemptive strike, completely wiping Russia off the map before they even have a chance to retaliate? Or vice versa? Well, at the height of the Cold War, Russia feared this very scenario, and America had begun to develop sophisticated anti-ballistic missile systems that could detonate Russian missiles at altitude way before they hit their target. Russia didn't like this, so they developed the ultimate weapon, the ultimate deterrence, a world-destroying weapon that would leave no survivors: the Doomsday Machine. The Soviet Union created the largest bomb in history, nicknamed Tsar Bomba, the king of bombs. It was tested in 1961 in the wilds of Siberia. It had 1,600 times the combined power of the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Even the Soviets were surprised by how immensely powerful the blast truly was. It destroyed an entire nearby village, flattening stone houses, and it shattered windows 1,000 miles away in Finland and Norway. But Nikita Khrushchev wasn't satisfied. It's no use having the world's most powerful weapon if nobody is left alive to use it. So, he came up with a plan, a real-life doomsday device that Dr. Strangelove would be proud of. The plan was to take a large cargo ship and turn the entire vessel into a nuclear bomb. The entire cargo hold would be filled with fissionable radioactive material. It would be many, many times more powerful than the Tsar Bomba, and truly powerful enough to destroy the entire planet, all on its own. It would permanently circle the coastline of Russia, and onboard sensors would detect radiation levels. If at any point extremely high radiation was detected, indicating that Russia had been hit with a nuclear weapon, the ship would automatically, with no human intervention, detonate itself, destroying the planet. It was completely automated, and it would ensure that even if no Russian was left alive, that they would still have the last laugh, by killing everything. What a truly terrifying prospect. Luckily, Russian scientists managed to persuade Khrushchev to drop the idea. It never went ahead. But another plan did. A real doomsday device that still exists today. Dr. Strangelove may have been fictional, but the doomsday device is very real. And it's called Russia's Dead Hand. Because even when Russia is dead, they can still play their hand. The system was codenamed Perimeter. Thousands of sensors were placed all around Russia. These sensors measured seismic activity, light levels, radioactivity, overpressure, and sound levels. All this data is fed back to underground computers, and the data is crunched, and if the data suggests that Russia has been hit by a nuclear blast, the system automatically activates itself. Once activated, the Dead Hand system sends a signal to every missile silo in the country, and they will automatically and instantaneously fire at every major city around the world, but mostly America. Absolutely no human interaction is needed for the system to function. This seems pointless and totally excessive, but it serves a very important function. It is the only real deterrent that can stop America from launching a preemptive strike on Russia's nuclear facilities and heads of government, disabling their retaliation abilities. So, in a twisted way, the world's most chilling device is actually the only thing saving us all. But the scariest part, you would think that such a system would have been disabled or turned off at the end of the Cold War. But high-ranking Russian insiders have reported that the system is still fully functional and remains activated today. But Russia committed the cardinal sin of a doomsday system. They forgot to tell anyone. Russia kept the existence of the Dead Hand system top secret for years, until a high-ranking official leaked knowledge of it in the 90s. And in the words of Dr. Strangelove, the whole point of a doomsday machine is lost if you keep it a secret. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please click here to support me on Patreon, which helps to support the channel and you can get some cool rewards like early access to all my videos. Click here to watch another video, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe.